Lavinia Crane kicked Nora Vale's tin lunch pail into the stockyard gutter and watched the lid spring open in the mud. "She's just a street rat," the banker's wife said. "Why should my mare wait while that creature eats?" Across the yard, cattle boss Silas Rourke stopped beside a black stallion and turned his scarred face toward her. Nora had refused to release Lavinia's fevered mare from quarantine. Now one question burned behind Lavinia's polished smile. What was she so desperate to reach inside the infirmary? And what would Silas do after seeing the richest woman in Cottonwood Crossing grind Nora's only meal beneath a white kid-leather boot? The August sun of 1886 lay hard on Wyoming Territory. The creek had narrowed to a brown ribbon. Nora had worked since dawn, bathing a mule's split hoof, cooling a colicky gelding, and separating 6 army remounts because one gray mare had sores inside her nostril. She was 29, light-skinned, auburn-haired, and visibly obese, with full upper arms, a broad waist, a prominent belly, and the substantial silhouette of a woman accustomed to bracing frightened horses. Cottonwood Crossing remembered the orphan who once slept behind livery stables. It ignored the woman Dr. Amos Pell had trained to read a pulse beneath a jaw, smell infection early, and keep flawless case ledgers. Nora looked at the biscuit dissolving beside a wheel rut. Hunger tightened her stomach, but she did not bend for it. Lavinia wanted the watching ladies to see shame, and Nora had fed that appetite too often. "Your mare has a fever and swollen glands," Nora said. "She stays behind the yellow rail until Dr. Pell examines her." Lavinia's face sharpened beneath her feathered hat. "My husband holds the note on this miserable place. You may discover that the yellow rail belongs to us by Friday." She stepped close enough for rose perfume to cover the smell of horse sweat. While her coachman argued with an ostler, her gaze slipped past Nora to the infirmary door. A ring of keys hung inside on a peg. The look lasted only a heartbeat. Silas had seen it. He handed his stallion's reins to a boy and crossed the yard. Men moved for him as grass moved before a storm. He was 37, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair, a dusted beard, and a pale rope scar through his left eyebrow. Half the county's eastbound cattle passed under his brand or contracts. People called him Black Rourke because he bought failing outfits before breakfast and never raised his voice. He stopped beside the ruined meal and looked at Nora rather than Lavinia. "May I handle this?" he asked. The question struck Nora harder than the insult. Men with money usually mistook power for permission. She gave one cautious nod. Silas faced Lavinia. "Your mare waits. Do you know who I am? A customer whose animal may carry sickness through 3 pens and 2 cavalry strings. Gideon can close your stockyard. Then he should bring a better reason than his wife's temper." Lavinia lifted her chin. "You would defend gutter trash against the president of Crane Territorial Bank?" Silas glanced at the pail. "I would defend my infirmary superintendent when she protects every horse in this yard." Nora stared at him. She was not the superintendent. She earned $18 a month and slept in a room above the medicine shed. But Silas's lie was not possessive. It built a wall long enough for her to stand behind. He called to the cookhouse. "Bring Miss Vale a fresh dinner. Put it on my account." "I can buy my own," Nora said. "Then pay the cookhouse tomorrow. Today you have patience." The offer left her a choice. She accepted it. Lavinia swept toward her carriage. As the coachman whipped the team around, the rear wheel crushed the lunch pail lid flat. The carriage vanished in dust, but Silas remained watching the infirmary door. "Count your keys," he said quietly. Nora did. The small brass key to the quarantine passage was gone. By sundown, the gray mare's breathing had worsened. Dr. Pell returned, examined the lesions, and isolated her in the adobe infirmary. Horsemen feared glanders because it spread rapidly and could sicken people. Pell would not pretend certainty, but he burned the nosecloths and warned the Territorial livestock inspector. Nora recorded the hour, symptoms, owner, and stall number in the case ledger. She also checked the round brass quarantine disc she had wired to the halter. The disc read 74. In her ledger, Lavinia's mare was 71. Someone had changed it. Nora searched until the lantern smoked. 3 discs were missing, One page had been cut cleanly from the duplicate certificate book, and the stolen passage key lay beneath an empty grain bin, as if dropped during haste. She found a streak of pale blue sealing wax on its teeth. Crane Territorial Bank used blue wax on loan packets. Silas listened without interrupting. Dr. Pell paced beside the desk, his white mustache trembling. "Crane has been pressing us for months," Pell said. "The infirmary note comes due Friday. If he takes the buildings, every certificate and treatment book in here becomes his property, not Nora's private case ledger," Silas said. "He'll take what he pleases," Nora answered. "The marshal owes him money." Silas studied the altered disc. His left hand closed slowly, but his voice stayed level. "Then we do not ask the marshal first." He placed a clean cloth over the wax mark and wrapped the key inside it. He did not seize Nora's evidence or promise that wealth could mend everything. Instead, he asked her to write down exactly where each object had been found, and he signed as witness beneath her account. "You believed me before I proved it," she said. "No, I believed what I saw. You were guarding a sick animal. Mrs. Crane wanted the door behind you. That distinction mattered. Nora had spent years hearing kindness offered as charity, then withdrawn when gratitude did not make her obedient. Silas was trusting her work. "What will you do?" Pell asked. "Find out how much of Gideon Crane's bank he truly owns." At 8 the next morning, Silas rode north with 2 remount ledgers in his saddlebag and asked Nora to bar the quarantine passage after dark. Cottonwood Crossing filled his absence with wild gossip. Nora trusted none of it. Gideon Crane arrived before sunset. He was a soft-handed man in a gray suit, with gold spectacles and a bloodless smile. Lavinia wore the same white boots, now spotless. The county marshal followed with a paper. Gideon laid a notice on Pell's desk. The infirmary's note had been called for alleged failure to protect collateral. Unless the entire balance was paid by Friday noon, Crane Territorial Bank would take the land, pens, medicines, and records. "You reported one of my wife's horses as diseased," Gideon said. "That injured the value of an animal pledged against a bank loan. I cannot permit careless women to damage my depositors." Nora opened her ledger. "The gray mare was pledged?" His smile faltered. "All valuable property is pledged to someone. What was her name?" Lavinia answered too quickly. "Silver Bell." Nora turned the ledger so Pell could see. "Silver Bell is a bay mare with a star, treated for a wire cut in June. The gray came without a stable card." The marshal shifted his feet. Gideon folded the foreclosure notice with one finger. "Friday, Miss Vale. After that, your gutter education will no longer masquerade as medicine." Nora's broad hand rested on the ledger. Fear moved through her, but it did not own her voice. "Until Friday, no horse leaves quarantine." Lavinia's eyes went to the cabinet where the blank health certificates were kept. Then the Cranes walked out. The next 2 days became a race against dust, heat, and paper. Nora compared each quarantined animal with treatment books, shoeing marks, brands, teeth, scars, and brass discs. One chestnut, listed as 6, showed the worn teeth of a horse near a 12. A black gelding bore a healing brand alteration. 2 separate loans described the same roan mare from opposite sides. Crane Bank had lent money against horses that did not exist, then used false certificates to sell gathered animals as sound army remounts. If the gray carried glanders, the fraud threatened every stable along the military road. Nora found the first proof, because a frightened sorrel would not take a bit. The animal had been entered as Captain's Pride, a gelding Nora had treated the previous winter. She approached sideways, spoke low, and let him smell her knuckles. When he settled, she lifted his upper lip. The notch in his left incisor was wrong, but a thin line of white hair beneath his mane matched a mare called Juniper, whose owner had lost his ranch after Crane foreclosed. "They dyed her coat and changed her sex on the paper," Pell said in disbelief. "Not well enough to change her teeth." Nora located Juniper's old case sheet. Pressed against it was a faint, reversed impression from the missing certificate page. Crane Remount Syndicate, Lot 12, approved sound. The opening cruelty changed shape. Lavinia had not kicked Nora's dinner merely because she despised her. She had needed everyone watching Nora's humiliation, while the coachman entered the passage, changed the discs, and took a signed blank certificate. The insult had been a curtain drawn across a crime. That evening, a hot wind began pushing from the west. It rattled the infirmary shutters and carried the bitter smell of distant grass fire. Nora moved the sick mare to the brick-end stall, soaked the aisle, and showed the stable boys how to wash their hands in carbolic solution after touching any halter from quarantine. Silas returned after midnight on a lathered horse. His eyes were red from the trail. Dust had turned his black coat brown, and the old scar above his brow stood white against his skin. Yet he stopped outside the quarantine line until Nora gave permission for him to cross. "Did you buy his debt?" Pell asked. Silas removed a folded packet from inside his coat. "More than that. Crane Territorial Bank was a private partnership, not the national bank," Gideon implied. He owned 2/5. Lavinia's uncle and 2 Denver merchants owned the rest, and had grown alarmed by unpaid cattle paper and false reserve reports. Silas had purchased all 3 outside interests for cash and guaranteed the honest depositors with Rourke cattle receipts. At noon the next day, he would become the controlling partner. Pell laughed once, then sat down hard. Nora did not. "Can you freeze their money?" Not because Mrs. Crane kicked a pail. Silas's answer disappointed something raw inside her, but it also made her trust him more. "I can suspend withdrawals from the Crane's personal and syndicate ledgers when I take possession," he continued, "provided we present evidence of fraud and ask Judge Mercer for an attachment the same day. Every farmer's honest deposit remains available. I will not punish a town to reach 2 people." He looked at the altered quarantine discs, the waxed key, and the impression from the stolen certificate. "Your proof gives me lawful cause. Your testimony gives it a spine." Nora crossed her arms. "And when this is over, do you own the bank, the stockyard, the infirmary, and everyone who owes them?" Silas absorbed the question without anger. "If I wanted obedience, I would not have put the truth in your hands." He showed her the purchase agreement. It required an audit, halted the infirmary foreclosure, and protected small depositors. He had made those terms before, knowing whether she would thank him. "I do not need rescuing into another cage," Nora said. "No." His voice softened. "You need time, witnesses, and a door you can close yourself." She handed the papers back. Their fingers did not touch until both allowed it. The next morning, Cottonwood Crossing crowded around Crane Territorial Bank. Heat shimmered above the boardwalk. Gideon stood behind the walnut counter, smiling at customers as though Friday belonged to him. Lavinia occupied a chair near the vault, dressed in burgundy silk and white gloves. Silas entered with the Denver merchant's attorney, a telegraph confirming the St. Louis transfer and the bank's new partnership register. Nora followed with Pell, the altered discs wrapped in cloth, and her case ledger held against her chest. People murmured when they saw her. Some remembered the gutter. Most expected her to remain near the door. She walked to the center counter. Gideon read the first page of the purchase agreement. Color drained from his face. Silas spoke so the room could hear. "I hold 3/5 of this bank. Under the partnership terms, I am taking control of its books and cash until the livestock paper is audited. You cannot walk in here and steal my institution. I paid your partners for what you told them was worthless." Silas turned to the cashier. "Honor ordinary deposits and payroll drafts. Make no payment, transfer, or withdrawal from the personal accounts of Gideon Crane, Lavinia Crane, or the Crane Remount Syndicate until Judge Mercer rules on the attachment." Lavinia rose so fast her chair struck the wall. "You are freezing our accounts over that street rat?" Nora laid the brass discs on the counter one by one. "No. He is freezing them because you used my humiliation to hide fraud." The bank went silent. The cashier opened the syndicate ledger. 4 loans named the same horses Nora had identified. A noon telegraph draft would have emptied half the ready cash. Silas marked it suspended. Gideon lunged for the ledger. Silas caught his wrist but did not strike him. He held the banker still until the attorney took the book. "You have until the judge hears us at 10 tomorrow," Silas said. "Then the court, not I, decides what stays frozen. For the first time, Lavinia looked at Nora without contempt. She looked afraid. The victory lasted less than an hour. The livestock inspector's telegram arrived. He would come on the morning train. If sickness reached the army remounts, the government would close the stockyard and destroy exposed animals. Silas read the message twice. That is what the Cranes need. If this yard closes before the audit, my cattle receipts collapse. The bank loses the security I pledged, and Gideon can call the purchase fraudulent. Nora understood the shape of the trap. The Cranes did not have to prove their horses sound. They only had to make every horse in Rourke's yard suspect. She organized the night watch herself. She moved the healthy remounts north of the dry creek, locked the suspect animals in the adobe wing, and numbered every halter with strips of red cloth no one could quietly replace in darkness. She copied her evidence summary twice. Pell carried one copy to Judge Mercer's house. Silas sealed the other inside the bank vault. "And the original?" Silas asked. Nora tapped her case ledger. "Stays where I can answer for it." He wanted to object. She saw it in the set of his jaw. Instead, he said, "Then I stay where I can answer for you." "Beside me," she corrected. "Not in front of me. Beside you." They ate supper on the infirmary steps, and Silas did not watch how much she served herself. He listened to the story of her first lame pony. In return, he explained why Black Rourke never raised his voice. At 23, he had shouted a frightened team into a flooded ford. The wagon overturned and his younger brother drowned. Since then, control had seemed safer than grief. "Buying a bank is a considerable way to avoid shouting," Nora said. His laugh surprised them both. When the wind lifted grit into her eyes, he asked before touching her face. She nodded, and he wiped the dust from her cheek with the clean corner of his neckerchief. His hand was steady, but the tenderness in it was not easy. It cost him something to offer, and her something to receive. "You were never street trash," he said. "Do not turn me into a saint because they made me a target. I would not dare. You argue too well." Warmth opened between them, quiet as lamplight. Nora did not call it love. Not yet. But when he left to check the north pens, she watched until the dark took him. Near 2 in the morning, the wind changed. The smell of smoke thickened. A grass fire, likely started by a locomotive spark miles west, painted the horizon a dull red. The stockyard crews had already plowed a firebreak, but the gale drove burning tumbleweeds ahead of the main front. Then the infirmary bell rope was cut. Nora heard the first quarantine gate slam open. Hooves struck the alley in a sudden rolling thunder. Someone had released the suspect horses. She ran from the office and saw 2 masked men whipping them toward the remount pens. At the far end, a lantern shattered against the medicine shed. Flames climbed the dry siding. Silas came over the rail on horseback, but the dust storm swallowed horse and rider almost at once. He could not fire into a yard full of stable boys and terrified animals. He dismounted, pulled one boy clear of a kicking gelding, and dragged a burning sack away from the hay barn. Nora did not chase the masked men. That was the easy anger. She chose the harder work. "Open the west flume!" she shouted. "Shut every north gate except the brick pens." The foreman hesitated. The west flume held the stockyard's last reserve of creek water. If the fire crossed the break later, they might need every barrel. "Now," Nora ordered. "Wet ground stops hooves from sparking, and they'll follow water out of smoke." Men ran. She climbed onto the treatment wagon, her full weight steadying it against the wind, and seized the small brass handbell used at feeding time. For 3 weeks, she had rung it before leading infirmary horses to mash and water. The sound was thin beneath the roar, but the grey mare heard it. Her head lifted. Nora rang again and called low, not loud. The grey turned. 5 suspect horses followed her toward the wagon. Behind them, the loose remounts began to wheel away from the fire. Nora guided the team down the single wet lane formed by the open flume. The alley narrowed between adobe walls, then opened into the empty brick sale pens. A burning beam fell across the rear gate. Silas rushed to lift it. One end rose, but a panicked draft horse struck the gate from the other side. The hinge tore free. Timber pinned Silas across the shoulders and drove him to one knee. The herd surged toward him. Nora could not reach the gate in time. She could save the ledger by running to the stone office. She could save herself by climbing the wagon rail. Or she could trust the skill people dismissed because it lived in her hands rather than a college. She dropped the ledger into the wagon's water barrel, sealed inside its oilskin wrap, and climbed onto the driver's box. "Juniper," she called. The dyed sorrel mare broke from the herd. Nora had soothed her that morning with a feed scoop rattled against the wagon rim. She struck the same rhythm now, 3 quick beats and 2 slow. Juniper veered toward her. The remounts followed the lead mare, turning inches before Silas. Their mass poured down the wet lane into the brick pens. Nora jumped from the wagon before it rolled past him. Her landing jarred both knees, but she stayed upright. Years of bracing mules gave her a wide, grounded stance. She set her back beneath the loosened crossbar, used a farrier's jack left beside the gate, and worked the lever 1 iron click at a time. "Move when it clears your shoulder," she told Silas. "The ledger. I chose you. Move." The jack lifted the beam. Silas crawled free, one arm hanging useless, and Nora let the timber drop. He tried to rise. She put his good arm over her shoulders and bore part of his weight while the last horses thundered into safety. Behind them, Pell and the stable boys soaked the medicine shed with flume water. The fire blackened one wall, but did not reach the hay barn. The prairie blaze struck the plowed break before dawn, split around the wet stockyard, and passed on both sides like a red river denied its bridge. One masked saboteur escaped into the dust. The other fell when his horse refused the smoke. The foreman caught him beneath the loading platform. He was Lavinia's coachman. Inside his coat were the stolen blue wax bank seal, 3 blank health certificates, and Gideon Crane's written instruction to release the quarantined horses before the inspector arrived. He had also carried a telegraph draft payable to Lavinia's uncle, stamped against the suspended syndicate account. Nora's ledger identified the horses. Altered teeth and brands proved substitutions. The wax matched bank packets, and Gideon's instruction linked the release to the fraud. Pell, the crew, and half the town had witnessed the result. At sunrise, Lavinia attempted to flee in her carriage. Nora recognized the team before anyone recognized the woman beneath the veil. The right mare was Silver Bell, the bay with the old wire scar. The left was another pledged animal listed as dead. Judge Mercer's deputy stopped the carriage at the bridge and found cash, jewelry, and a second set of syndicate books beneath the seat. The hearing moved to the stockyard because the inspector refused to leave the animals. He ordered destruction and disinfection for the suspect group and cleared the separated remounts. Nora had prevented wider exposure. Judge Mercer attached the Crane's personal and syndicate accounts, continued the freeze under court authority, and appointed the Denver attorney to guard the disputed books. He released every innocent depositor's money and suspended the infirmary foreclosure. Gideon was charged with fraud, attempted destruction of evidence, and conspiracy to sabotage the quarantine. Lavinia faced the same conspiracy charge, and the coachman agreed to testify. Justice came through hearings, audits, and weeks of testimony. Gideon's false loans were unwound. Ranchers recovered titles, and the Crane house was sold to cover losses. No widow or wage hand lost an honest deposit. Silas kept control only until the books balanced, then offered shares to local partners. The Cranes did not leave Cottonwood Crossing penniless because a powerful man disliked them. They lost the property bought with fraud because Nora's records showed where every stolen dollar had traveled. Dr. Pell recovered from smoke sickness and announced that retirement had begun to sound intelligent. He transferred half the infirmary to Nora in payment for 12 years of underpaid work. Silas cancelled the old foreclosure note only after she negotiated a new one on terms she could meet herself. "You bargain harder than any banker," he told her. "I have met bankers." His shoulder healed slowly, and Nora refused to let pride tear it again. He warmed water for her hands after long treatments. She read bank reports aloud when headaches blurred his sight. They learned each other in useful hours and became peaceful with truth. Autumn brought the first clean frost. Silas found Nora hanging a new sign above the infirmary porch. Her name stood larger than Pell's old lettering. Nora Vale, partner and superintendent of the Western Animal Infirmary. He waited until she climbed down the ladder. "I have another partnership to propose," he said. Nora looked at the small velvet box in his uninjured hand, then at his face. "Does it come with controlling interest?" Equal votes, separate property, one home, if you choose it. No answer owed today." She made him wait through one slow breath, not to punish him, but to feel the freedom of choosing. "Yes," she said, "provided you never buy another bank before discussing supper. That condition may ruin me." They married after the first snow, with Pell as witness and the stable boys scrubbed nearly unrecognizable. No one claimed prejudice vanished from Wyoming. Some women still lowered their voices when Nora entered a shop. The difference was that Nora no longer lowered hers. On the infirmary porch, beneath the brass plate bearing her name, rested the old tin lunch pail. Silas had hammered the lid flat but left one honest dent in its side. Each noon it sat open between two plates while horses shifted peacefully behind the yellow rail, and no boot in Cottonwood Crossing ever touched it again. Prairie rose here. Nora's victory was not that a wealthy man grew angry on her behalf. It was that he used his power with limits, while her knowledge turned outrage into justice no one could dismiss. She protected sick animals, honest depositors, a wounded man, and her own right to choose the shape of her future. Dignity can begin when someone steps beside us, but lasting freedom comes when our own name is written into the work we have earned. When have you seen quiet competence speak louder than cruelty? Share your thoughts in the comments. I would truly like to hear them.